All right, guys, welcome back to the next part of this Total War podcast series of interviews. The first one was with A. Howell on Rome Total Realism Imperium Surrectum on Rome Remastered. Today, I'm going to be talking to RedHornet. Thank you for joining me. He's the modder behind the Era Chapters mods across the Rome series of mods that he's made on Attila. There's the Napoleon mods, and you're working on the Victoria and Enlightenment mods as well. I believe the Enlightenment ones are quite new. And I think you've just released the first chapter as well this week, which is quite exciting. So we can talk about all that, your experience in modding, your mods so far, what you've got planned for the future, and more. You know, this is kind of an informal conversation. It's we can get into topics of what we enjoy about Total War, our favorite campaigns from our memories, where we started with the series, all of that. So really fun, really informative. Let's get right into it. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about yourself, RedHornet?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure for me for being here. Well, as you have said, I have just uploaded the last files for the chapters of the Enlightenment era. What I can tell you is that I have been modding for Total War since for the last 3-4 years, more or less. I started with the Rome era chapters for Attila, and then I went back to probably my favorite Total War, that it's Napoleon Total War, and I made the eras that you have just presented that are Napoleonic, Victorian, and just 3 days ago I uploaded the first chapter for Enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's a pleasure for me here, and I will answer all your questions.
Yeah, definitely. Nice. Why don't we start then with where you started with Total War and then Total War modding specifically? What was your first game? How did you actually get into beginning to mod in Total War?
Well, if I start with the beginning, that's how I get introduced into Total War. When I was I think I was in the high school, more or less, with that age. That's kind of 15, 16, more or less. I had a friend that presented me a game that was Rome Total War, and in exchange I shared with him the Mountain Blade War one. And when I saw the Rome Total War for the very first time, I remember that I thought I was like, this is the game that I have never been looking for, but I was always dreaming about it. So it was like perfect for me. Rome Total War, in proportion, it's also, in my opinion, the best Total War.
Yep.
Probably it's because of the nostalgia effect also.
Yeah, true.
But I spent playing Total War since the high school to university, from Rome 1 to Medieval 2, then Empire and Napoleon. And in Empire, that I guess I was when I started the university, more or less, and I started like seeing things in the game that I didn't like uniforms or how the battle mechanics work. So I just started to Google if it was possible to change it, and I observed that there were mods that were changing those things. And at the end of the day, just you start like reading more, learning, and you get curious and you learn how to mod by yourselves. I spent like that like many years, like I don't know, like 8 years or 7 years just playing Total War and using different mods, until one moment that I really started modding heavily. First of all, for Attila, for these Rome era chapters, but my first mods were all of them related to units, skins, in order to make them like more cool or more accurate, and definitely to change the battle mechanics, because at the very beginning, Total War was perfect for me. Like I have already told the game that I have always dreaming about. But when you spend like 8 years playing the same game, I started to feel that battles were like too easy, too repetitively, and the main problem was that they were too easy. So I started to edit a lot of things related to battles to make them a bit more realistic, but keeping the equilibrium with making them still difficult to win, and all that stuff, and how will affect your campaign. And after that, it's like it opened like a new door, because I have always been a big fan of history. I was very young. Even with, I remember the first video games that I saw were Age of Empires, and they came out. I was too young, so I spent the afternoon seeing how my big brother played Age of Empires. So I have always been a fan of history. So that's when, and reading all these books of Rome history, Napoleonic history, at some moment when I was happy with the changes that I made in battles, I started to feel the same feeling about campaigns. But for example, if you play Attila, you have like in the vanilla game, you just have one campaign with one starting date. And if you like playing as Rome, it's like very repetitively because it's always the same context, the same missions, the same gameplay.
Yeah.
So I started creating like new star posts of historical events that I have already read in the books of history. And that's how it really began the Rome era project. It's important to note out that when the COVID-19 came out is when I started to mod Harley because I had many of us many more time.
Yeah.
But I will say that that's the big reason of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really like great way to use that time. Like
Yeah,
you
I
said,
think
I mean,
so.
COVID was a pretty big shock. Everybody's stuck at home.
Yeah, it was.
I love that you kind of directed that energy into modding for Total War. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
I don't know if it is true this statement, but probably without COVID, Rome era project and all the other era project and chapters, maybe they will not exist.
Yeah, I mean, I
Because
know.
like something that was always in my mind, and I already modded battles, and I was thinking about modding campaigns, star posts, all. But it's like something that you always have in your mind, but you are like waiting to see if in the mod if somebody makes it for you, and you never do. And COVID was like the perfect excuse to start working on it. Because at the end of the day, I spent like all the mornings working at home and all the afternoons free at home.
Yeah.
And yeah, probably without COVID, we don't have this project.
Do you think that modding campaign is more effort and time as well compared to modding battles?
Well, definitely modding campaigns takes more time
Yeah.
because it has different phases. The first phase is that you have to read history and you have to inform yourself. So you could make an accurate, in my case, if you want to make chapters that are related to events in history, the first thing that you have to make is to read books about it. And that takes quite a lot of time. I will say that when I start making a chapter, like the 25% of the time of the total time that I spend making a chapter is just reading books at the start. And then for the campaigns, you have to change a lot of things because you have to change the star posts, you have to change all the DB tables with all the AI mechanics and the economy mechanics, diplomacy, all that stuff. And battles is like more concentrated in fewer tables. But battles also have a problem that maybe it's because I look always to perfection. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
But you have to make many more tests than campaigns. Because campaigns, at the end of the day, when you already have what you wanted, it's like you are happy with it and there's nothing more to mod. But with battles, you can mod it, but then you have to experience how your changes will affect to the AI.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to test so many times until you get something good safe.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. I think especially since there are lots of variables in the campaign as well, but I think not a lot of them interact with each other quickly enough to really make an impact and to really be noticeable. Whereas the battles, if you've got a morale value for this unit that's kind of different in a way, and the AI actually uses it in a kind of weird. There's a lot of uncertainty, I think, in such a short time frame. Yeah.
The main problem is as the AI is really hard coded, you don't really know how it's going to behave.
Yeah.
So, for example, to my YouTube channel, I have uploaded many videos of all the different tests that I have made for the Napoleonic Era chapters.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, to the AI of Rome era chapters is more easy to be happy with because it's a melee combat. So it's not so complicated as the gunpowder era battles, these line battles of Napoleonic and Enlightenment, that they are more complex at the end of the day. So I made quite a lot of tests with different ideas, and I will say that I have spent a lot of time just testing all the battle mods that I made for Napoleonic.
Yeah, I bet. I mean,
Definitely.
I think especially because like you said, like when you're doing melee, you're basically looking at like hit chance, damage values,
Yeah.
and ranged has a role, but it's a very small role compared to actually where the massive focus is, which is that line that happens in the middle of the battlefield. When you've got ranged purely, and you can have melee as a kind of specific role with cavalry or with skirmishers, like it's such a you can have people attacking from an elevated position, and yet that has a huge impact if you've got different units with different types of balancing and stats that you're tweaking. How does that impact these units that is going to be in the opponent's army? How is the AI going to react to different circumstances? And yeah, I can see it being very complicated.
Yeah, exactly. You have many more variables as you have just presented. At the end of the day, it's like in melee combat, you can afford to have a more dumb AI
Hmm.
because the movements are not so complicated, and so you don't really need a clever AI. But for these line formations with range and muskets, at the end of the day, you have many more different movements. You have to one of the things I have been always trying was to make sure that the AI will not charge into melee.
Hmm.
Because in vanilla, in Napoleon vanilla, the AI always tries to charge into melee a lot.
Yeah.
And there are many more complicated things to take into account. The artillery, when you move the cavalry, because depending when you decide to charge with cavalry, you can have a very clever or a jam movement.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. So yeah,
Mm.
the reason is that it's much more complicated and you have many more variables to have. So that's the reason why you need to have a more clever AI, or at least an AI that is not so dumb that it will break the whole gameplay experience.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so here's a good question that comes to my mind. You've modded both Attila and Napoleon now. Have you modded any of the other games? Just to
Yeah, I modded. My first mod was Empire,
okay,
but
right?
Empire and Napoleon are pretty similar. I mean, they
Yeah, they
are
are.
almost the
Yeah,
same. The only things that they change is the skins, how the skins of the units work,
right.
textures, and the models.
Hmm.
But Napoleon is a bit more complicated, but it's good because it adds like more variants for its unit.
Hmm.
But the rest is almost the same. And then I also modded Rome 2 because I love all this ancient. I mean, I made Rome Era Chapter, so I love Roman history.
Yeah,
And I started with Rome 2 before an Attila. But when Attila came out, I felt that Attila was the Rome 2 that we should have, that we never had, because
right.
Rome 2 had a lot of issues.
Yeah.
For example, also these more cartoon graphics that I don't like.
Hmm.
And it's true that Attila and Rome 2 are exactly the same when modding. They are exactly the same in everything.
Yeah.
Attila, maybe there is a bit of change in the scripting, but I mean, almost all the thing is the same.
Hmm.
The most complicated thing to mod is the scriptings for Attila, because you need to know to code. And even if I know to code because of my work, the coding language of Attila, it's new for me. I mean, it's not C, it's similar to C, but it's not the same. It's
Hmm.
like they have their own code language. I don't know. So I had to learn it just by trying, and, a tough process.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And then I also modded a bit of Shogun 2 because I also played Shogun 2. But
Hmm.
just was related to the skins of the units, but nothing serious. I didn't play Shogun 2 too much.
Okay. And how like do you feel like just kind of diving into modding and modding capabilities, tools, what CA has developed for modders to be able to access the kind of groundwork. How do you feel like that is at the moment with these games? Yeah.
Well, I feel that they have gave us the necessary to not create new games that they will break their current way games.
Right.
So we will still need to buy the original game. So, and it makes sense because it is a business.
Yeah, I mean,
and
you don't want to
enough.
be able to like re-engineer a
Exactly,
game completely. Yeah.
exactly. You don't want to modders to make Napoleon too free.
Yeah.
But they gave us enough to really improve Napoleon and make cool mods. The only thing that I really don't like of the current situation is all that's related to the battle AI, because it's hard coded in all the games, and it's true that you can do things to improve it, change it, but we don't really have the main code and we can access to it. And in my opinion, it's the worst thing, because at the end of the day, in Total War, everything is cool. But if battles are not fun, it doesn't matter how cool the game, for me at least, it doesn't matter how cool the game or the mod it is. That if the battles at the end of the day are not fun, it doesn't deserve to lose your time playing it. And that's what I felt with sometimes with Attila and Napoleon, and that's why I started modding battles, because it's like the first thing to really enjoy this game is to have enjoyable, funny battles.
Yeah.
And we are like a bit limited there because they don't really give us any kind of help there and no tools to really fix it.
Yeah.
But well, you know.
Well, you hear as an outsider to modding, and a lot of players obviously are like this as well. You hear, you read, this mod changes this battle AI in this way, etc., and it's much better. And obviously, you do some of that with your work as well, as much as you can to make it seem a bit more seamless and human-like, or challenging, or natural. How does that look like? What exactly are you tweaking to try and get the kind of vision that you're working towards?
Yeah. Sorry. Well, at the end of the day, we are not really changing the battle AI, because I have just told you we can access to the the code, because it's hard coded.
Yeah.
So every time you see I have changed the battle AI, nobody has done that in reality. The point is that you can change things in tables that will make the AI to behave differently. So it's like cheating AI to behave as you will wish. You get a point?
Yeah.
It's like, for example, one of the changes I made. Okay, you can change all this stuff about the accuracy of the muskets, the runs, and those things, but those things will not really affect how the AI behaves. It will affect to the gameplay experience of the battles, but not how it behaves. So the first thing that I started doing when making my battle AI mod was to understand how the battle AI vanilla works. So I started playing different battles in different situations. Like, I'm gonna start playing just with line infantry, and then just with line infantry and artillery, line infantry, artillery, and cavalry. And you start playing all different battles just to test the vanilla code. And you see that depending on the situation, it behaves differently.
By the way, guys, if you don't own Total War Napoleon or its DLCs, you can pick it up with a massive discount on Instant Gaming, a reputable game key reseller that I've been using for a little while now. They have a great roster of games on sale like Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered, Crusader Kings 3 Chapter 4, or even the entire Total War catalog, all with big discounts. So if you're thinking about buying, make sure to click the link below to get your games for cheap and support the channel at the same time. Now let's get back to the video.
And one of the things that I saw is that it was related to the class of the units that you had in battle. For example, for Napoleon Total War, I observed that if you just have in your infantry line infantry, they will not go into melee. They always will stand firing, and they will focus on firing, and that's fine. But when you introduce light infantry and skirmishers, I don't know why. Well, basically because it's hard-coded. The line infantry goes into the melee, and the skirmishers keep firing.
Right.
So the thing that I made was simply to change the classes of the units, make all the line grenadiers and elite infantries skirmishers, and the skirmishers and light I transform it to line. So like that, what I get, it's an AI that it will think that the line infantry in reality is a skirmish, so it will use it for firing.
Right.
So the problem with this is that at the end of the day, my skirmish and light are going to keep going into melee. But at the end of the day, these battles were the 80% of the units were line infantry. So it would be like you are trying to eliminate a big issue that's breaking entirely the experience, just that you can really eliminate. But cheating the AI, you are able to make it softer in the experience of the gameplay. Just like instead of imagine having a battle of 20 units, where 15 units will be going into the melee. Now what you have is that in a battle of 20 units, you just have 2 units going to the melee. So the battle experience really changes. And at the end of the day, what I want to tell you is that you don't really cheat the AI. You just cheat the AI to force him to behave as you wish.
Yeah. So this is kind of how I understood it as well. I think it's essentially you're not directly changing the way the AI functions from a code perspective. You're changing the parameters around it so that it reacts differently to its situations.
That's the
circumstances.
Point.
Yeah, and in effect, you are actually changing the AI. It's just not like you're not turning it into something different. You're just you're molding, you're adapting the game to be different according to the limitations that are hard coded into it, kind of.
Yeah, in game, it will seem that it's a different AI, but in reality, it's the same one, because it's like it still has the same instructions and it still follows the same instructions, but you have just changed the path of when it should use one instruction or the other.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I really find that kind of mind-boggling as well in terms of why certain parameters like battle AI, for example, is so hard-coded, or like another classic one that a lot of people complain about is region, culture, faction, hard-coding limits. I mean, there are good reasons for it in terms of performance, and you don't want to get it off the rails, and you also don't want to have to remake a game that CA want to maybe make later on. But Rome Remastered is a great example of a game that kind of does away with the limits and gives modders the ability to do whatever they want in terms of regions and adding new factions and all of that. It would be what other kind of issues or maybe boundaries do you see within modding that kind of make your life a little bit more difficult?
Well, I will say for Attila, I know that in Attila the map can be modded and add new regions and also to change the map, but it's extremely tough and difficult. And the same happens to Napoleon until I think that the first time that I saw that Napoleon could be edited, the map, was like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And if I'm right, only one guy really knows how to do it. And he has told me many times that the process to it is extremely tough and difficult, and it's quite complicated to teach. And I mean, at the end of the day, it seems that it's true that the map can be edited, but it seems to be so difficult that it's like a limit really for modding, because for example, in my case, I can't edit the mod. Imagine what I could do with Napoleon, the Napoleonic era, if I could create American map.
Yeah.
I could make all the eras for all these American wars of the 18th and 19th century.
Absolutely.
And I really think that the biggest limit of all these Total Wars is the map and how to add. But again, I understand why they did this, because if you can imagine that they give us a tool to change the AI and we can make battles that they will really embarrass the vanilla experience. And also they give us the opportunity to create new maps. At the end of the day, with one single Total War, you could create any Total War. So probably a lot of people will not buy new Total Wars. At least they will buy less Total Wars, that's for sure. So I understand why they do, but for a modder not being able to change the battles and to change the map, I think that will be the two most important things.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Let's move on a little bit more to your own mods. You know, we've talked a lot about Total War, where you started modding capabilities, the kind of like not the truth, but the sort of behind the scenes of how you do it, the challenges, the great kind of experiences you've had as well. Let's talk about where you started with the Rome Era Chapter mods. Kind of explain what your ambition was there, what you've achieved, and is it sort of finished? Because I know that you've done a lot of work on that. You're moving on to, and you already have, you know, you've done the Napoleon era mods as well now as well, and you're doing Enlightenment. So go through a bit of a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Your kind of your own chapter era of modding through these different series.
Well, yeah, as you say, I started with Romera for Attila, and I have already commented that the main point was that at some point I get bored of having the same start pose
True.
for Attila, so your experience was always the same, and so that's the first motivation for making different chapters.
Yeah.
And the other one is that I love history. You have a lot of different events in Roman history that are awesome, and not any Total War game plays around with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I started just trying to reproduce all those chapters, all those moments of Roman history I have written in books in the game, so I could experience them in game. And basically, that's how I started making all of them. I started with the ones that are more close to the vanilla date of the game. And then I went back to ancient periods and also to the medieval era, because the first chapter is located in the last Roman map, and the starting date is the second foundation of Rome. That is the same as the rise of the Republic of Rome to
Yeah, that's right.
DLC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the first chapter. And the last one is the foundation of the Holy Roman Empire in the 10th century.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like all the important events of history that you can play with Total War, because at the end of the day, Total War is like the perfect tool if we talk about games, about video games, to really learn history and play all these events. So that was also one of the main ideas of the project, was like, look, we have here a tool that we can use with just one single game to play and to learn almost all the Roma experience through history. And I think that I really did. I mean, obviously, I made for Romera like 25 or 30 chapters, so they are not as polished as other mods that they are just focused in one single age or era.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I think that at least they are good enough in immersion to really feel that you are playing that date.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's like just one single game, because at the end of it is everything with Attila Total War. So I will say that that's the main idea of Romera. And you have also asked me if it is finished. Well, there are some things that I have to polish for many chapters, that's true. 3 weeks ago, I made a new test for battles that I changed it. I made them a bit longer and, in my opinion, a bit more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So I still in development in Romera and updating it. And I still have to do 2 more chapters to finish the first idea of the era was to make just chapters until Charlemagne era, but then I expanded to not to Holy Roman era foundation. I made another one about Basil II. That's the last one.
Okay, right.
Probably I will just make another one in Middle Ages related to William the Conqueror, using this sub mod. Sorry, using this Anno Domini mod that I have realized it. I'm allowed to make sub mods for it.
Okay.
And about Roman ancient history, I just like one chapter that it will be, if I remember correctly, 3.1. That it will be focused on the invasion of Germania and Britannia in Age of Charlemagne's map.
Okay, right.
So it will be in there. Have you seen the Netflix TV show about barbarians?
I actually haven't. No, I haven't.
Well, it talks about the invasion of Rome in Germany.
Right.
In I think that the year is like they started at 15 BC, something like that. So more or less we will start there until the invasion of Britannia in the 60, 80.
Okay. Nice. So it sounds like you've got a few kind of chapters you still want to do, and you've got some polishing that you're still doing in terms of like battles and balancing and realism, but you're kind
Yeah.
of almost done and dusted with it, essentially.
Yeah, I started with Rome era. It's my first
Yeah.
era, but
Hmm.
it's almost finished. I mean, it's like I think that just uploading two extra chapters and polishing things, that it's like kind of a month work. I will not work on it this month, but more or less it was like a month work. I think
Hmm.
that it will be finished definitely, the Rome era chapters. Right now, I'm more focused in all the eras that are related to Napoleon Total War.
Yeah. And just before we continue, also, and I'll say this at the end of the video as well, if you're watching, you're interested, you haven't tried these out yet, there's a link to each of these series of mods for Attila, for Napoleon, in the description below. So check them out, guys, if you're interested. But yeah, let's talk about Napoleon and what you've been doing there as well.
Well, when I my problem is that sometimes I get bored about the things that I also made, and history is like it has a lot of interesting things. It's like I
Yeah.
don't understand why I should just get focused or limited in Roman history, because you have a lot of interesting things in modern era,
Yeah.
and I always also love it in Napoleonic era. Moreover, if we talk about vanilla, the original games, Napoleon Total War is my favorite Total War.
Okay.
So I started, why not? Why not to do this?
Hmm.
And I saw that some guys, before me many years ago, they made something similar. It's this thing called Le Monte de l'Empereur. It's in
Yeah.
French,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I've
my
heard of it.
pronunciation is horrible. So, but yeah, but they made kind of chapters. Yeah, as I did for Attila, they made like from 1792 to 1815 in Waterloo, like 10 different chapters more or less. So I took their work because their team was disbanded many years ago. I
Yeah.
tried to contact with them and nobody was there.
Hmm.
And I simply expanded the experience, creating more chapters for Napoleonic era, and changing all these things for battles, for the campaign gameplay, and also I created a lot of different new models that they came from. Well, I used the models from. This mod from Montemblé War Vanets L'Aigle?
I don't think so. No.
It's a Napoleonic mod for War Van.
Okay.
So there was a guy that asked for permission to this guy to take his mods and converted them to Napoleon or
Hmm.
Napoleon Total War.
Right.
And this guy stopped also this project, and he contacted me and he told me, okay, I have this stuff that's like the original models from this War Van mod, and you can use them for whatever you want. And what I made was like copy and paste for all the different factions. I created like custom models for almost all the factions of Napoleonic era in the different eras. Like
Hmm.
because for example, the Napoleonic era expands from 1792 to 1815. So I have to make like 4 different uniforms files that will show the development, the evolution of these uniforms, because
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
the uniforms of the factions in the late 18th century is not the same as in Waterloo.
Yeah. Things change
It
very
took a lot of
quickly.
and it took a lot of time, because to make all these custom uniforms for every faction and every unit is like the most expensive thing in time.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, at the end of the day, I spent like 1 year more or less, all of my free time. So, well, the problem of I don't know if it's a good adjective for it, but is that you really need a lot of free time for this.
Hmm.
I spent kind of a year only for Napoleonic era, and I used like every night, like I mod like 2 hours every night. So imagine modding from Sunday to Thursday every night 2 hours is
Wow.
painful sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
But yeah, but at the end of the day, I also finished Napoleonic era, and again, I get
Hmm.
bored about it.
Yeah.
So I had also some books about the Victorian era, and I said, why not? I started working on Victorian era, and it's quite curious because there have been like some projects for Empire and Napoleon about Victorian era Total War,
Yeah.
but they have never really done, and nobody has really done a mod that it's related to it,
Hmm.
and simply made new ones. And again, when I finish it, I started reading books about the 18th century, and I said, why not?
Yeah. And then now you're starting to do Enlightenment era.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so tell me about the first chapter that you've just released for it.
Well, I have uploaded the first chapter just this Sunday, 3 days ago,
Yeah.
and it's about the starting date of Empire Total War. It's the Spanish War of Succession,
Hmm.
and it's like a first version with we already have there an accurate start post. We already have custom uniforms for all the factions that were involved in the Spanish War of Succession. I still have to make for the next version the uniforms of the factions that were involved in the Great Northern War.
Hmm.
They are still not there.
Yep.
And yeah, the idea is, as I did for Napoleon and Victorian era, to expand this era for all the most important conflicts of the 18th century. Basically are the Spanish Succession War, the Polish Succession War, the Quadruple Alliance, Austrian Succession War, 7 Years' War,
Hmm.
the American Independence War, and the French Revolutionary Wars. More or less will be something like that.
Nice. And you're doing Enlightenment now. You're going to dabble, obviously, and continue the work that you're doing both in Rome, Napoleon, Victorian era chapters. When do you kind of like your time is shifting more and more into Enlightenment? When do you think you'll figure, right, Napoleon, these era chapter mods, I'm kind of done here. I'm moving on now, or the Victorian era chapters? When, like, you're going to work on these for a couple more years? How do you feel like those are going to go?
Well, the amount of chapters that we have for Napoleonic and Victoria are the ones that are going to be until the end of the days. I mean, I'm not going to
Yeah.
make new ones for Napoleonic and Victoria.
Okay. Right.
And I mean, for example, Victoria is almost finished because we have everything. We have custom uniforms for all factions, for all eras, for all the
Hmm.
chapters in Victorian era.
Hmm.
And the only thing that it lacks is to have accurate models for the muskets, the rifles, and the cannons.
Right.
But right now, I do not have the knowledge to make those models.
Hmm.
I'm waiting until somebody teaches me how to do it. But for the rest, Victorian is finished, so don't expect new
Okay. Right.
dates, or at least big updates for it, because it's
Yeah.
closed almostly.
Yeah.
And Napoleonic, it's almost the same. This one has obviously accurate models for muskets, cannons, and everything. Also, the chapters are finished, and we have custom uniforms for almost all the factions. So the only thing that you can expect for Napoleonic is to add some new custom uniforms from some minor factions that they haven't been reskinned.
Right.
That's everything that you should expect for Napoleonic. Sometimes when I discover something new for the battle AI, obviously I will update all the Napoleon Total War eras with this new battle AI discovers.
Yeah.
If I made new ones, because I don't think so. And basically what you can expect right now is to see how Enlightenment gets expanded, these new chapters and all the custom uniforms for the different chapters, and how at some point, probably just before summer, I will stop the Enlightenment development for 1 month, 1.5 months, to definitely finish Rome era.
Okay. Yeah.
Rome era.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. Nice. Wow. Well, I mean, your mods are very interesting and unique. There's not a lot of other work like yours that gives the player the chance to play out, different
Thank you.
flashpoints and conflicts and interesting start pauses of various points in history of a particular era. So I think it's a very cool, interesting way you've gone about it. And like you said, I mean, it's not about having super deep and really replayable singular mods like I don't know DEI or MK1212 or anything like that. It's more, you can play this here now. You can play the next kind of phase, the next chapter with these characters and these kind of sets of unique uniforms, and kind of play out through history and get a kind of clear immersion into what really happened historically, which is quite cool.
Yeah, yeah,
To be able to access
definitely.
that. So well done to you. I mean, I think a
Thank
lot
you,
of
thank you.
people appreciate it as well.
But you made a good point there. It's like I also felt like some of these super deep and polished mods. At the end of the day, the problem that they have for me is that they spent thousands of hours and years to make like a super accurate, almost a simulator of one certain age for Total War. But at the end of the day, they are always talking the same history, the same story.
Yeah.
For example, imagine that you make a super polished mod for the Second Punic War. At the end of the day, you will always have a very similar gameplay experience. So it's like more easier to get bored, at least for me. So that's why I also decided to make this. It's like when you read a book, imagine that you have a super detailed book, but it's always telling you the same story. Or having another book that is not so detailed, but it's like telling you a lot of different stories. So when you get bored about one, you can just follow to the next one.
Yeah, that's a
And read
great
a
way to
total,
put it.
total new story
Yeah.
that in this case is a real history event.
100%. It's like having 50 short story books where they're kind of like
Exactly.
smaller 50 100-page like little books, but within them you've got 10-page stories, and they're really cool, they're really fun, interesting. And then having a massive big book that's like 1,000 pages that you could reread every like year or something and really get into it. And
Exactly.
but then you kind of run out of steam. Maybe it's so long, it's taking a long time, and come back maybe a later time to try and finish it off. Maybe you don't. Question marks. Yeah, it's a really interesting way to put it, actually. I
Yeah,
never thought about it that
exactly.
way. Hmm. Would you, okay, so you've done Rome, Napoleon, Victorian, Enlightenment. What do you see? When do you see yourself getting bored and moving on to the next era? And
That's a good question,
what might
and
that
I'm
next era
afraid of.
be? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm afraid of because it has to happen sometimes. I mean, I can't be modding for my whole life. It's something that I really like
Hmm.
because if I'm honest with you, the 80% or the 85% of my free time that I spend in front of a computer is modding,
Hmm.
and the other 15% is testing the mods I made.
Yeah.
So almost all my gameplays right now are just testing or recording things that I test for YouTube. That's related to modding,
Right.
and it's my passion. I mean, I prefer right now making mods and creating these new chapters that playing video games.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm playing video games, but you know what I mean. You get my
Hmm.
point.
Yeah.
And yes, where it will finish, that's a tough question, and again, I'm afraid of it. But I'm pretty sure because I still have time that I will finish Enlightenment
Hmm.
because I will never start an era without finishing. I'm also gonna
Yeah.
finish Romera,
Hmm.
and then if I still have, I think that I will still have the forces to keep working on it. But if I still have time, and I think that I will keep working on Napoleon Total War because I have like two other different eras on my mind
Okay.
that they will. One will be American era because now that I have seen that the Napoleon Total War map can be changed.
Hmm.
I would love to create kind of North American, Central American map for Napoleon
Oh, that would
and
be
create
amazing.
American era. That
Yeah.
yeah, I'm talking to this guy to see if he can teach me.
Hmm.
I mean, I think maybe it's gonna be complicated because I can understand also that maybe he doesn't want to share something that he has discovered.
Right.
But well, if at some point I have free time and really know how to mod it, I think that the American era will be the next one. And if
Yeah.
it's not, and I still want to keep making new eras, I think that the Contra Reformations era, like all these events that happened between the 16th century and 17th century, just everything before the Enlightenment era,
Right.
I don't think that could be also interesting mod era for Napoleon Total War. It's also that you also
Yeah.
have medieval era out there that will be interesting.
Yeah.
and that should be something for Attila. But the reason why I don't really want to make it is because I'm pretty sure that one of probably the next total war about history is gonna be medieval free.
Hmm.
So if at some point I want to make a medieval era that expands my current medieval mods for the Rome era, I think that it's better to wait to medieval free. If I'm still in this world, I mean in Total War
Yeah,
modding, but
yeah,
you know,
it makes sense. I mean, I think one of the reasons why a lot of medieval mods are coming out is people basically, saying we want a medieval
yeah,
three,
we
and
want medieval free. Yeah,
yeah, and
that's
and
true.
and I mean, you have so many out there right now, making a medieval chapter era mods. It will. There's just so many of them, and especially if
Yeah,
medieval 3 does come out, it would just get again lost in translation a little bit. Plus, I mean, if a medieval 3 comes out, you're much better off making an era chapter series on that game where systems are
I
much
think
more
so. Yeah,
developed,
yeah.
where modding hopefully is a lot easier with tools that are better kind of equipped, more accessible, hopefully, anyway.
I hope
Um,
so.
yeah. So, yeah, I can definitely see your reasoning there. Would you ever touch Shogun?
Well, I have played just a few of Zone 2,
Yeah.
and I play like for some. Look, the interesting thing here is that I have always been a single player Total War player.
Player. Yeah.
Wait, the moment I have a problem here. Uh, wait. Okay. But the only time that I have spent playing multiplayer has been with Zone 2.
Okay.
I
Right.
spent
Right.
like some months playing, and it's the only time that I have been interested in multiplayer for Total War.
Mm-hmm.
But if you talk me about making eras for Shogun 2, in my opinion, it has two problems. The first one is that it's true that I'm more focused in the history of Occident, the
Yeah.
Occidental history.
Mm-hmm.
You can see with my all the eras that I have done.
Yeah.
And the other problem that I have with Shogun 2 is the graphics, that they are
Right.
very cartoon for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that it's realistic at all.
Okay.
It's something that I really
Interesting.
can stand with Zone 2. That's the reason why I didn't play it too much, because it is a good Total War.
Mm-hmm.
But when I play Zone 2, it's like, for my eyes, like, it's painful because what I have already told you, it's like too cartoon,
Mm-hmm.
the style of the graphics.
Yeah. Interesting. I get it. That's funny. When I look at Shogun 2, I actually feel like it's very realistic. I have the opposite sort of impression, um, of looking at units and the style of the, like, to me, of the older games, Rome 2 is probably the most cartoony looking. Like when I play, for example, the 1100 AD medieval mod, I very quickly start stuttering and being like, God, it's so cartoony. It's more evident now with mods like this. DEI, I think it does a really good job of trying to polish things and smooth things out and make it look a lot nicer. So Rome 2 to me is a lot more. I can kind of see some similarities with the kind
It is
of
true. I
with
mean,
Shogun
I
2.
agree with you with that point. For me,
Hmm.
Rome 2 is so cartoon. That's other issue that I have with Rome 2, because Attila, it makes, like, in my opinion, it takes Rome 2 graphics and it makes them a bit more realistic.
Oh,
That's
100%.
one of the Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I made the Rome era tab just for Attila and not for Rome 2.
Yeah, yeah.
The other reason is because it has like new mechanics that
Hmm.
they do not appear for Rome 2. Definitely one of the reasons is that the graphics are more realistic, and I don't really
Yeah.
like the cartoon graphics. It's like it takes me out from the immersion of the game.
Hmm. Okay. Well, okay. So interesting. So you're gonna do an American eras potentially if you can mod
Potentially, yeah.
them, if you can mod the map, which I'm guessing is through the modder who's doing the Carlist Wars, the TFOTS.
No, no. The model has that has made the Carlos Wars is for Shogun 2, right?
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, that is for Shogun 2.
Because I made a mod about Carly's Wars for Napoleon, and you already have the
Yeah, of
peninsular
course.
map
Yeah,
that you can
yeah.
use.
Right. Yeah. Oh.
No, there is a guy that he made a war that's just focused in 1792,
Okay.
and he was able to transform the peninsular map of Napoleon into France.
Oh, right. I
I
do
think that the
know.
mod is Dawn of War. Do you know?
Yes, Dawn of War. That's right. Yeah, I know. I know
That's
the
the
one you're
mod.
talking about. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean, there.
again, is that kind of mod that is like working super deeply
Yeah.
in making a super like a fine simulation of that year
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
But what he has achieved with the map is incredible. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it would be
Absolutely.
nice to make the same to create North America,
For North America, absolutely.
because a lot of things happened in the 18th century and 19th century in America. I mean,
Yeah.
you have all this Franco-Indian War, the American independence,
Yeah.
these wars within Mexico and USA, and the American Civil War,
And the
obviously.
Civil War. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, that would be amazing. And then you look at the 16th, 17th centuries as well. Earlier on, pre-Enlightenment, which would be quite cool. Which would kind of be sort of like middle pike and shot ish
Yeah, it will be a pike shot.
transition,
That
yeah, of
definitely.
technologies.
And it already exists once for. There is a mod for Napoleon that it's involved in the 30 Years' War. It's
Yeah,
pike and shot for
yeah,
Napoleon.
yeah.
So it will be like expanding that mod for all the events that happened between the 16th and 17th century.
Okay, nice. Okay, so we're kind of drawing slowly to a close of the interview. We'll just have some sort of more like personal questions. You know, how have you, for example, enjoyed or have you played the newer Total War games at all?
That's a tough question still. Because I know that it's a lot of controversy here.
Oh, I
I've seen
mean, you
quite a
know,
lot of videos of all these big YouTubers talking about what's happening with Total War in these recent
well,
years.
well,
And
YouTubers like to talk a lot, you know, but
yeah, but I have seen in the comments that it's kind of a lot of hate here. But okay, I will give you my opinion.
yeah, sure.
I have to say that the new Total Wars are not bad games.
Yep.
The problem with them is that in terms of in the history related games,
Yeah.
there hasn't been really a good development there. It's like they feel almost the same as the old ones. It's like, for example, when I see Pharaoh, I don't see that it has been really a big change with Rome 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you have been like working for, well, probably for Pharaoh they have already spent like 1 year of development. I don't know, but not too much. But between Rome 2 and Pharaoh, how many years are there? The runs of years, like you have
Yeah.
like a gap of year of 6, 7. No, I don't know, but it's quite a lot.
Yeah, it is a
And
lot.
I
Yeah.
know that they have been focused in other things. They have been focused in the business. That's Warhammer.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I feel. It's like it's not worth to buy it if I already have, for example, Attila and Napoleon, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not worth to buy it. That's my opinion. It's like it's a good game, and if I wouldn't have the previous Total War, I will buy it. But I have the previous Total War games, and I already spent the money there. And apart from that, they are also focused in history moments that are more interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no point to buy these new history Total War games. And if we talk about the non-historical Total War, I really think that they are also very good games. I haven't played Warhammer Total War games. It's pretty curious because when I was young I had a collection of Warhammers, of the plastic
Okay.
figures.
Right. Yeah.
I had it, but when I get older, I will get more interested in real history events than in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, the game, because I have watched many videos, it really feels to be very good, and it adds a lot of mechanics that we didn't have in the previous Total Wars. So that's cool too. They made a good war there.
Yeah.
But the point in my case is that I'm not interested in it because
Of the setting.
right now I'm not interested in fantasy. That's But objectively they are very good games. That's why I have
makes
to
sense.
talk.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I'd agree. I mean, you can clearly see how the games are different going from medieval to empire, from
Yeah,
from empire Napoleon Shogun to Rome 2 and Attila. There's a very clear progression in
yeah,
how
but
they're
I think that
designing
they
the
stopped
games.
there.
And yeah, and exactly. I mean, Pharaoh plays almost exactly like Rome
This,
2.
yeah,
It's just hundreds more factions, regions, and like a
exactly.
dozen or so
That's
more mechanics.
I feel
um
the same. It's like there is a progression that they made you really hype to buy the new Total War games until Attila, more or less.
yeah.
And after that is why like I don't see nothing new here. And if I take into account that, and also that the history event of the new Total War is not as interesting for me as the previous one is, why I going to buy it?
Have you played Three Kingdoms?
No, the only new Total War that I have played is the which one is the one of Britannia?
Oh, Thrones of Britannia. Yeah.
Thrones of Britannia. That I
Right.
tried, but I felt that it was Attila,
Yeah.
exactly the same as Attila.
Yeah.
And I say, well, it's just exactly the same as Attila, but if with a smaller map, all the cultures are the same. So,
Yeah.
and that's the first time I thought that this happens here, something here in historical Total War games that it's not going as well as it was going in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely makes sense. Okay. Closing question. Final question.
Tell
Um,
me.
give me your favorites chapter mod that you've made. Specific chapter.
One for one. First of all, I have to remember of the chapters, but
True.
you
True.
want
I mean,
one chapter for each era? That would be fair.
yeah. Think of an era chapter you made, you finished, you tested, you played, and you thought, wow, you know what? This was really fun to make, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it's a really good one. Like I'm proud. I'm really proud of this one specifically.
It's a tough question, very difficult to answer. I think that the one of the chapters that I really enjoyed doing it and playing it was the one about Majorian for
Okay.
Romera.
Yeah.
It's it's I think that it's the immersion is pretty cool also, and also because it's something, it's a context that I really like from history, like
Hmm.
the last try of the Western Roman Empire to recover from the ashes and
Yeah.
reconquer the lands.
Yeah.
And I think that I made a good work. That I'm really proud of that one.
Nice.
But I think that the era that where most feel that I made a work that the immersion is perfect, in my opinion. I mean, I'm really satisfied with it. Is
Yeah.
the Napoleonic era
Okay.
because of the battles. In definitely, I mean,
Hmm.
I'm very proud of them.
Okay. Nice. Sounds good. All right. Well, I thank you for being here. Thanks for doing this conversation, this interview. It's been really fun.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
Sure.
And keep up the great work. I've played a lot of your era mods over the last 5 years since I
Thank you.
first picked up.
For me, it's believe me, that's an honor.
Yeah. Oh, well, the honor's mine. I mean, Total War really wouldn't be anything without people like you who love working on it, love creating mods, and
Thank you.
your era chapters are, for me, I think, alongside a lot of the other iconic mods on and throughout the Total War franchise, as one a series of mods that people should play to really make the most of their experience. So, well done. Keep it
Thank you.
up.
Thank
Can't
you.
wait to see the
I
rest of your
appreciate it.
chapters you have planned for Enlightenment, and
Sure.
I do keep my fingers crossed that you're gonna keep it up, continue with some new eras in the future. But we'll see.
I hope so. I hope so.
All right. Well, any closing kind of statement you want to say? Any last kind of words for the audience, the viewer that you want to mention?
Well, I could say that if I, for finishing the podcast, I will say that
Yeah,
first
sure.
of all, I feel that Total War is the perfect tool to learn history. That's the reason why I made this project.
Hmm.
And I will want to say that in terms apart from Total War, that it's important to understand that the best way to understand why it's happening today is to learn what happened yesterday.
Definitely. That's a nice note to end on. All right. Thank you everyone for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Like I said before, there are links to each of the Era Chapter mods in the video description below. Definitely check it out. There is also a Discord community that RedHornet has. If you want to go in there, check out some of the latest updates that are happening. Play with like-minded players as well across the series and through his mods. And yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. So thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.